You're fired. What do you do next? That's the question from Ryan of Winston-Salem, who writes, "How do you get over being fired, especially when you know it wasn't your fault?" Ryan, thanks for writing in, and I just want to say I really appreciate your honesty and vulnerability. I know it's hard when you get fired, especially when you feel like it wasn't your fault. And that's exactly what I want to talk about today, because I've been there. I've had that pit in my stomach, that shock of, how did this happen? And it can feel unfair, like you were blindsided. And what's worse is that it messes with your sense of self-esteem, your sense of worth. And it makes you question if you're enough, or if you could have done something differently. It's tough. But here's the thing. Getting fired, even when it wasn't your fault, does not define you. Okay, so it's a chapter in your story, but it's not the whole story. I once worked a job where I felt like I was giving it my all. I stayed late, hit every deadline, even took on extra work when the team was struggling. But one day I walked into a meeting and they let me go. And I remember sitting in my car afterward just staring at that steering wheel thinking, how is this happening to me? I wanted answers, I wanted justice. I wanted somebody to say to me, you know what, Josh, we're sorry, we shouldn't have done that. But that moment never came. But that's when I realized something. Waiting for fairness or an apology or closure, it was keeping me stuck. I could spend all my energy being bitter and replaying conversations in my head, or I could move forward. Was it scary? Absolutely. But the alternative, staying stuck in that resentment, is much, much more frightening. And that's when I learned to shift my mindset from, why did this happen to me, to, what can I learn from this? Think of it like this. Have you ever seen those trees that get struck by lightning, but they keep growing? They might look a little bit scarred, a little rough around the edges, but they're still standing. They're still growing. And viewer, that is you. You've been struck, but it didn't take you out. You are still here, and you're still growing, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. And if you lean into this time, this uncomfortable, frustrating, unfair time, you will come out stronger. It won't be easy, but I promise you it will be worth it. Now, here's the other piece. When you feel like it wasn't your fault, it's easy to hold on to that. It's easy to get trapped in that idea that if circumstances were just a little bit different, everything would have worked out. But the truth is that sometimes things don't work out for reasons that we cannot see in that moment. Maybe it wasn't your fault, but maybe there's something better waiting for you on the other side of this. And yes, I know that sounds cliche, but it's been true for me every single time. I've seen doors close in my life that I was desperate to keep open, only to find new opportunities waiting down the road. There's a story I heard once about a farmer. His horse ran away and all of his neighbors came by just to say, "Oh, what bad luck." And the farmer just shrugged and said, "Maybe." The next day, the horse came back with a dozen wild horses, and the neighbors came by again and they said, "Wow, what great luck." But again, the farmer just said, "Maybe." Next day, the farmer's son was riding one of the wild horses and he fell, broke his leg. And those same neighbors were back again saying, "Oh, how terrible." And you guessed it, the farmer just says, "Maybe." A week later, the army came to the village to draft young men for war, but the farmer's son couldn't go because of his broken leg. And of course, the neighbors said, "How fortunate," but the farmer just said, "Maybe." The point is, sometimes we don't know what's good or bad in the moment. We just have to keep moving forward with trust that is all part of a bigger plan. So to anyone who's struggling with getting fired, here is my challenge to you. Let this be the moment where you decide to let go of what you cannot control. Don't wait for that apology or that closure that might never come. Instead, focus on what's next. Because I promise you, there is a next. Whether it's a new job, a new career path, or just a deeper understanding of yourself. This experience is shaping you for something even better. Is it scary? Absolutely. But the alternative, staying stuck in bitterness and resentment is much more frightening. If you're going through this right now, just know you are not alone. We've all been there in one way or another, and again, it doesn't define you. You've got so much more ahead of you, so thank you for tuning in, and as always, I'll see you next time.